Yeah.
All right,
On and on.
they finally did it. They finally did it. We knew it was coming. You know, Tesla Model S is fundamentally a 10-plus-year-old design, which is a long time in car years, and even longer in tech years. So we knew that some sort of a refresh of Tesla Model S was eventually going to happen to catch it up with all the new stuff about Model 3 and Model Y. And now it's happened. So about 24 hours ago, Tesla finally updated their site. They had their earnings call. They dropped the new design of the Model S and X on their site, inside and out. A lot of new stuff. I had some initial reactions and I tweeted some of them, but then I chilled for a little bit and I slept on it and I got some more thoughts and some more questions. So this video is going to be all my thoughts on everything new in one place, some honest reactions from an electric car enthusiast, but also a Tesla driver currently who was thinking about getting one. And at the end of the video, I'll tell you about my decision on the new Tesla. So let's get into it. So first of all, the outside, if you look at it, looks like a pretty minor change, nothing too drastic. It's still clearly the Model S shape, but now with black trim where the chrome used to be. That's a good change. I like that. RIP to the chrome. It's looked kind of dated for a long time. We won't miss that. But really the biggest change to the outside that I can see is the front grille and the front splitter at the bottom are a little bigger, a little simpler. The fog lights are a little bit narrower, a little bit cleaned up. And Model X also got this change too, by the way. So they have this unified front look. I think they look solid, but still obviously very familiar. Also, some of you may know I'm a big fan of wrapping my car, so I guess none of this would really matter too much to me, but I like the silhouette of the car, so it stays the same. But where most of the major changes were on the interior. So this is the new interior of the Tesla Model S and X, and boy, do we have a lot going on here. Okay, overall, I think it looks hot, but there's a couple key things that I think will be more important than others with the new stuff here. So let's just start with that steering wheel, shall we? So this is what they call a yoke steering wheel. They also have this style steering wheel in the new Roadster prototypes. And it basically looks like someone just took a regular steering wheel and chopped off the top half of it. So now this is the part that we all look at and we're like, okay, on one hand, that looks pretty sick. And in a straight line, it's gonna feel like a fighter jet. It looks like an airplane steering wheel. But the more we think about using it, well, the more you come up with the reasons why maybe that's not the best idea. But first of all, if you look at the images again, there's no stalks or anything behind the steering wheel. Typically you have your paddles, your gear selectors, your blinkers. There's none of that in this car. So that's why it has this super minimal look. So if you look on the steering wheel, that's where all the buttons are. There's two scroll wheels and then there's blinker buttons on one side. And you have a button for the headlights and for cleaning the windshield, and the mic for voice commands, and even the horn for some reason is a separate button. So they've really gone full on, it's like an F1 car basically, where all of the buttons are on the steering wheel for quick, easy access so the driver never has to take their hands off the wheel. It's inspired by, I guess, that functionality. So it's interesting. I think that's definitely something that's gonna have to take some getting used to, like a lot of things in Teslas. But I really hope those are physical buttons and not like touchscreen buttons, because if that was a touchscreen button, that's not the way to go on a steering wheel button. But it looks like a regular button. But then with the half wheel thing, I know I've sort of mentioned this before, and I thought we've gone over like the question, is this even legal? There's a lot of things Tesla does and renders and prototypes that aren't shipped yet that you're like, is this even legal? But if we forget even the legality question, the question of is it legal or not really stems from, is this safe or not? Is this smart or not? Not having a top of the steering wheel is very different for a lot of people. Like I imagine in autopilot, of course, this makes total sense, but just driving in a straight line, a lot of people like to rest their hand on top of the steering wheel. There is no top anymore. And also for turning, you know, just a lot of those moves where you're like sliding the wheel through your hands, there's just, whenever there's a chunk of the wheel missing, that's a question. I feel like I have to use it to understand if it's worth the trade-off or not. But hey, it's a render, so we have yet to see if they're actually gonna finally ship a yoke steering wheel in a Tesla like they've said they would, but I can already imagine there's a bunch of third-party add-on accessories being planned for this top part. Maybe you get like a carbon fiber piece, or you get some like suede leather, whatever's going on. I'm sure there's a lot of companies licking their chops that are gonna make that. Bottom line, I'm gonna have to try it. I have lots of negative thoughts on it, looking at it, but it looks cool, so I wanna try it. Oh, and then also, I was just wondering, because I'd just been looking at the pictures for a while, there's no gear selector. Like that's usually also a stock, like every other car, but there's no stocks in this car, and now where do you just go into drive? That was my question. How do you reverse? How do you go into neutral? And apparently, I found an Elon tweet where he says that the car guesses your drive gear based on what obstacles it sees, the context, and the map, and you can override it on the touchscreen in the middle. This might be the definition of, I don't know about that one, Chief. I really think a drive selector is like a fundamental thing in a car, and I know Tesla likes bending the mold of fundamentals in cars, but I can imagine this is either going to be great the 90% of the times it works, or awful and potentially dangerous the 10% of the time it doesn't work. Like, I imagine trying to pull a K-turn on a busy road and then you have to reverse and it's not letting you reverse, and you hit the pedal and you go forward. It's a lot. I don't know about that one. But anyway, in the interior, the most important change, I think, is this move to the new horizontal touchscreen, which makes it easier for their software development since now all the cars have horizontal screens, and they don't have to do separate dedicated resources for doing vertical screen stuff anymore. I kind of wonder how that will affect my car and everyone who has a current Model S who has a vertical screen. Will the software updates start to get slower? Not sure, but this sort of unifies their lineup. But this screen looks nice. It's a 17-inch diagonal again, 2200 by 1300 resolution, should be pretty bright and sharp, and they mentioned excellent responsiveness, and there's a lot of compute power behind this screen, so I have no doubt about that. And it looks even better than Model 3. It looks, I think, much better integrated into the car itself. Like, it just doesn't stick out as much as it does in the Model 3. And you know what's interesting? It says on the site it has left-right tilt. Like maybe it moves or something. Now looking at the renders, I don't know exactly how it's supposed to move. Like if you just grab it, will it pop out of the dash and you can sort of tilt it towards you? Not sure. I'm very curious how they pull that off. But currently, it's kind of hard to see sometimes, but the Model S screen is tilted a little bit towards the driver. So that's pretty important. Model 3, it's a little closer to flat. Then Model S has now inherited the touchscreen controlled air conditioning vents from the Model 3. I'm pretty neutral on these. And there's also now a pair of wireless chargers underneath that screen, much higher up. I love this, but still a major advantage of the Model S and Model X, they're more premium vehicles, for their setups is that it still has a display behind the steering wheel. And so this one is still here, which is sweet. And I think it even got a little bit bigger, which is dope. But it opens up more room now that you have that info, like your speed and your drive and maybe your navigation in the middle. It opens up more room on the center display. And then there's a new third display added for the backseat passengers, which I assume will let them control their air conditioning, but they can also play games from a wireless controller, which I think gets a lot of people excited. The thing is, it sounds pretty sweet, but it's so low down there that I imagine if you're in the back seat, like craning your neck looking down at this screen for so long, you probably don't want to game on it for a while. Usually screens in the back seat are up against the headrest, but maybe a kid would enjoy that. It's a cool feature. I'm not going to downplay it. I just think it's funny it's so low. But anyway, then there's a couple extras that I noticed. One, ventilated seats are back. Nice. Then there's also now Model 3 door-style handles on the inside, and there's a pair of wireless charging mats in that new backseat armrest for your passengers, which is sick. And then the site details a new speaker system with 22 speakers and active noise cancellation. But the key word here, the key word, active noise cancellation, which is really interesting. If it works anything like I've seen in active noise canceling headphones, what they're basically doing is using microphones to hear the noise outside the car, like road noise, wind noise, maybe even pedestrian murmur, just sort of white noise outside. And then it pumps in anti-noise into the car to make it sound perfectly silent inside the car. And I think that might be the most Tesla thing ever. It's really fascinating. So many manufacturers have gotten really good at like their window seals, and every little gap in the car is as tiny as possible to minimize the sound that gets in from the outside. And that's a nice premium quiet experience. Obviously Tesla's not quite as good at that yet, so they just do it with software. That's the most Tesla thing ever. Either way, I gotta test it. I wanna hear it for myself. I'm curious about that. But that brings us, last but not least, to the insane specs and prices. So Model S is now simplified to 3 versions: long range, Plaid, and Plaid Plus. So as you can see, the base price went up. It's no longer $69,420. Sorry, fans. But it is a dual motor long range version, and it'll do 412 miles, 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds, and 155 mile an hour top speed. Now that's already pretty sweet. That's a performance car already, but that's the long range version with dual motors. Then there's Plaid. And the way to look at Plaid is it's basically a new improved performance Model S. So this time it's triple motors. So the range goes down a little bit to 390 miles, and it'll do 0 to 60 in 1.99 seconds, thanks to 1,020 horsepower from those motors, and a 200-mile-an-hour top speed on the right tires. So I guess it's most likely a bit less than that on street tires, but not that that should matter. That's a ridiculous number and a ridiculous set of specs for a 5,000-pound sedan. But here's where it gets interesting. As a truck drives by, now there's Plaid Plus. So the Plaid Plus version will do 520 plus miles of range and a slightly faster 0 to 60 with a little bit more horsepower, 1,100 horsepower. And just for fun, they quoted a sub 9-second quarter mile, which would make it the quickest production car ever made. So aside from the ridiculousness of a 5,000-pound four-door family sedan rocketing 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds and the fastest quarter mile ever, I want to focus just for a second on the difference in range between Plaid and Plaid Plus. That's a pretty big difference, from 390 miles to 520 plus miles. So that leads me to believe that Plaid Plus, when it comes out later in the year, because Plaid is right around the corner, Plaid Plus is likely a new battery of some kind. New battery technology, new battery capacity, maybe both. Because if you look at Model X, there actually is no Plaid Plus Model X. So it's just the long range, which goes 360 miles, and then Plaid, which again is the performance model that loses a bit of range. It goes to 340. So this new performance model, the Plaid Model S with triple motors, is going to start shipping in March, which is right around the corner. But the Plaid Plus is still in development and coming later in this year, 2021, if it's on time. And I assume this is the new battery technology that will also end up in Cybertruck, because that thing promises also 500 plus miles of range, and the Roadster when it happens, because that promises 600. Which brings me neatly to my conclusion. I'm not ordering a Plaid Model S or a Plaid Plus Model S. I don't plan on needing that. Now, don't get me wrong, I want it. I want to experience face-melting 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds, and I think it would be sick. But as far as differences between the Model S I already drive, not a whole lot of them making a big difference to me. Maybe the range is the one biggest thing I'd be missing out on, but I'm staying patient for Roadster. And we did finally get an update, just one random tweet on Roadster, which looks like it's now going to be 2022, if it's on time. But also the thing is, early Tesla models, if you haven't noticed, tend to be the ones with the most tiny problems and the most little bugs. And I think this will be a little period of working those things out, working out what the deal is with the steering wheel and the software about going from reverse to forward and figuring it out like that. That's going to take a little bit. So I'm staying patient. I'm staying patient. And I will have eventually a Roadster to look forward to that will do this crazy range and will somehow have even better performance than this rocket sedan that they just made, the Plaid Plus Model S. So anyway, that's pretty much it. That's my thoughts. I'm super curious what you guys think seeing this new interior. Does it bring Tesla up to the luxury look or luxury levels you're into? And what do you think of the yoke steering wheel? Because I think that's going to be the most polarizing piece. But either way, I'll leave my Dear Electric Cars video down below the like button if you want to check that out. That's about it for this one. Thanks for watching. Catch you next one. Peace.
Back to low on and on and on.